The thing that's been challenging for me is that I've had to really redefine how I work. So I'm not just working with things, I'm working directly with community and the meaning that that community holds. The objects that we're collecting are still alive, and the women who created and helped organise the Hamilton gathering last year are coming in to sew this on to the Perpetual Banner.
I'm Sally and this is Anne, and we've come down from Hamilton.
The Hats Off to Rural Women slogan actually celebrates the role that women play in the community. The 4 hats that were chosen for the logo, the first one being the akubra, and that represents the agricultural contribution that women make to the agricultural industry. The helmet is actually representative of any emergency services and certainly community service that women participate in.
Yep.
The academic hat is obviously representative of their qualifications, any education that they'd had and participate in either a paid or voluntary role. And the fashionable hat representing their social interaction and their personal life. The colour purple is probably doesn't necessarily represent rural, but it's a nice
Feminine colour.
It is a nice feminine colour, the lavender and the purple. But yeah, as we said, we were pleased with the result, and once again, we could have certainly put a lot more hats on the hat stand if we were to represent the role that all the roles that we women play in the community.
And the banner is made up of, each previous year has been represented by an image, with usually a statement. So they sort of use both image and word,
yes,
and symbols.
And they're very clear, really, about the layers of meaning that they want to build into that.
Yeah. This is pretty precious. This is from the Numurkah gathering. And
is it really the real cowpat?
It is the real cowpat that they had at that gathering, and it was a bit of an afterthought from the stories that we've collected. The actual icon it's a dual icon, the cowpat and an irrigation shovel. At this particular gathering, the Minister for Agriculture of the time gave a very, it was one of those patronising speeches. So on the formal handing over ceremony, which is part of the rituals associated with these icons, someone added the cowpat as a sort of symbol of what had happened.
But foolproof.
It's a very powerful icon.
And it's very political, because it does definitely say, we don't quite like your approach to the minister. The whole process is a communal one in which people work together and they make their meanings as they go. Now that's hard for the museum, isn't it? I mean, it's not just hard for the museum in that it's taking in an object which is going to change under its hands, as it were. But it's also hard because the museum has to grasp the fact that these women continue to claim the right to make the meaning for these objects.
My interpretation of the value of this material is shared with the women, and we come at it from different angles, and just like your interest in it comes from another angle again.
Yes.
So in a sense, we've got not only the diversity of the women themselves, but we're opening up to the possibility that there's a lot of different ways of valuing this material.
And there's a lot of different histories in the material. In exactly the same way as you're going to have to struggle with persuading the museum that artefacts can carry meanings that are not determined by the museum. A lot of historians are beginning now to come to terms with the proposition that their source bases, their collections of documents and things, may actually need comment coming in from the people who are the subjects of those. And it really is going to change that sense of any fixed history or any determined authoritative history.
And it keeps evolving. And I suppose the other thing that really I think is, one of the areas that I'm interested in is the way in which these women have identified themselves through symbols. Because if you think back to the museum's practice, we collect things, and usually those things have an intrinsic value. The value and the essence of this collection is it resides beyond the tangible. It's beyond the object, beyond the perceived value. We've got everything from a magic wand to a cowpat. These things have no intrinsic value in the sense of what they are, but they have through the symbolism that they represent. The other interesting thing too is that, in a sense, the community is taking the leadership here. They've actually, quite separately to the museum, assigned their own significance, have articulated that these things are important to them, that they want somehow to preserve them and locate them somewhere that makes sense of them. And that empowerment, that sense of not only, you know, participating in it, but making meaning and then creating some other outcome is pretty exciting. Like the women's involvement in the various conference presentations and talking about it. It's not just me as a curator. And then it becomes more like a community curatorial process.
It allows community ownership of a communal memory.